Session number 11, here we go. We're definitely on the back nine now, guys.
Yeah, man.
Actually, we're past the turn. We're headed towards the clubhouse, aren't we? we have this one and 4 more sessions. By the way, just a little feedback to you guys. I've absolutely loved doing this, and I'm thinking that some way, somehow, we need to do these kinds of things in an ongoing way. I've learned so much just talking with y'all, and but I do know everybody really just has to make it happen on your schedule, and I appreciate that so much. Chapter 11, everybody. Man, this was such a great chapter. I loved all of it, and I'm just full of comments I can make, but take a good look into the coffin is the title of it. And I found it more encouraging than the title of the chapter once it was all said.
Yeah. I looked at that and I was like, what?
Yeah. But I want to just open it up to you guys just the same way we did last week and just ask you, is there anything that you wanted to be sure and get to share today? And I've definitely got some things that I can touch on, but who wants to go first? Fire Bible. We believe in the Fire Bible.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Anybody?
I always recommend that to everybody. You know, discipleship.
Oh man, it's a wonderful reference Bible. It really is. Just great. Anybody want to go first?
I kind of, I got a kick out of this on page 139. There, almost to the bottom, right before crockpot leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When I first saw that, I said crackpot leadership. I said, that's not us. Okay. I love it. When you stand before people and tell them in order to accomplish a mission, they have to change, adapt, give up something for the greater good, work with those they don't like, or compromise on something to care about, they get mad. They get really mad. Mostly they get mad at you. And this is the kicker right here. Okay. And this is exactly the sign that transformation is beginning to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You know what, Gordy, when you said that, I wondered if you were going to read that exact sentence, because it really stood out to me too.
Yeah.
Say more about it, that transformation thing. This is the sign that transformation has begun. Why did it touch you? What was it about?
Well, probably from some past experiences I had, and I thought, and how was I leading? I know it was things that we had to do, but it's like, well, this whole chapter, and just leading up to the adapting to change, and leading in that way, that people have to give up things. That it's like a choice, and of good things,
right?
Well, there's another part of this which said they were talking about today's problems comes from yesterday's solutions. Okay. They're both good things. They were a good solution at that time, but we all get stuck in a rut, and we want to hang on to those things because they worked in the past, and it kind of turns into a formula, and it might not be it for today. It just
it's a great,
and you're so used to stuff, you want to hang on to it,
Oh yeah, we definitely want to keep hanging on to that. But it is a great point that we're presented with these challenges when real heart transformation starts to happen. Man, people resist that and get mad about things. But if we can just keep in mind, like you just said, hey, if we make it through this healthy and we become better, in the future, they'll look back at it. This will be the solution. The thing that was the problem is now the solution, What else, Mo and Oliver? You guys feel free. What do you got for us today?
Hey Keith, I'm gonna pass to Oliver. I don't have my book with me. I'm sitting here in the school parking lot. We had to work tens today, and I totally forgot. But so I'm just gonna pass
I
to Oliver.
appreciate you being here with us. I
Yeah.
knew you were in the truck and I thought, it looks like he's still on site.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mo, for that extra sacrifice.
No worries, brother. I'm sorry.
Not at all. Thank you. Thank you.
The thing that stood out to me was, the title, the take a look at, into a good look into a coffin. I thought the paragraph below it would talk about that a bit, which it really didn't. But it was that first paragraph that he quoted from another book that says,
Mhm.
adaptive changes stimulate resistance because it challenges people's habits, beliefs, and values. It asks them to take a loss, experience uncertainty, and even express disloyalty to people and cultures. Because adaptive changes force people to question and perhaps redefine aspects of their identity. It also challenges the sense of competence, loss, disloyalty, and feeling incompetent. That's a lot to ask. No wonder people resist.
Yeah.
And I took that, and if I go back to page 147, it talked about the temperature of the crock pot. But the second paragraph on 147 says this: most of the time when things get heated, people get scorched. The meal is
Mm.
ruined and most is thrown out of the crock pot. Thank God crock pots really don't burn food.
Yeah, right.
It's the stove that does.
That's what I was
But
thinking too.
I thought about that first paragraph, what it talked about. When the change happens, there's a lot of anxiety going on.
Mm,
But if we can regulate the temperatures of of that anxiety, it goes a long ways. Sometimes it'll make us hear things differently. Maybe we have to train ourselves to hear things differently.
Right.
For example, when someone says, hey, how come you're not doing this, or this? It's not that we're not doing it. And if we hear only that, it'll tend to make our blood pressure go up a wee bit.
right.
But we need to listen in another way, saying what they're saying is, hey, how can I become part of this?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think it challenges us to think things differently. If that
So
makes
very
sense.
good. That gets into that idea of the blue zone response and the red zone response. You talked about that. And the very words you just said, we are not like a thermostat. We are the thermostat. I, uh, and along those lines on page 138, it's the very phrase that it's stated several times in this book, but man, here it is just in black and white. The paragraph in the quotation halfway down: people do not resist change per se, people resist loss. And that is so good. I'm that way. We are that way. It's not that we don't know that there's something that needs to change, but we start wondering, what could I possibly lose out of this change? This is hitting me pretty hard, and we resist that. Actually, that was the end of my sermon yesterday. Wouldn't it be great if we, of course, we're going to sacrifice some things, but wouldn't it be great if we could make even more friends and take more people to heaven with us? Wouldn't that be wonderful? I picked up on a piece of advice from my father-in-law, who pastored for 54 years, carried credentials 55 years, was an evangelist, missionary, pastor, and had a lot of different roles. By the way, Mo, yesterday I was thinking a lot about our dad, who pastored churches for 42 years. The reason was that in my private devotions early yesterday morning, I read Jeremiah 18, 1-4. Go down to the potter's house, look at what's being made. And he saw that the potter splatted it and reshaped it into something that he needed to make it into. And that was the verse that God confirmed his call on my life. It was many years ago at Eustis First Assembly of God. After a Sunday night church, after church service, I stayed late in the altars and prayed and just sought God and was worshiping. Finally, Mom and Dad came into the church right as I had just taken a wad of tissues full of snot and tears and all this. I just threw it into the front chair or front pew, threw it right into the front pew. And I said, I threw my hands up. I said, Lord, I will follow you wherever you're calling me to go. And then I turned around and there was my mom and dad weeping. And they actually saw the moment of me being called into ministry, which is so amazing. But for years, even if I would sort of forget it, Dad would, because Mo, you know how Dad, he was a walking Bible. He had a way of saying, over there in, and he was going to quote a scripture, over there in Jeremiah 18:4, and but he would say, yeah, the Lord gave Keith that verse when he called him to ministry, and so for that to happen yesterday on such an important day as we're casting new vision, it was just such a great confirmation to me. Man. It really meant a lot. But the thing that I take away from this chapter is so good. And this is the thing that I started to say about my father-in-law. It's on 143, that whole section where it's talking about the impala and is there a lion there or not? And so they're drinking and the whole herd is at the watering source and they're drinking, but anxiety starts to come in the air and they're all reacting. They think maybe there's a lion in the brush. Is there a lion or is there not? Or they're just making it up? Their lives depend on the right decision in that moment. And they have to do that over and over again. One time, and I don't even remember how it came about, I was talking with my father-in-law and he pastored stateside for 26 years. And then his role in missions was he was basically a pastor to the missionaries. He was just a pastor's heart. And I don't know if I ask a question, or probably as I think about it, it probably happened intentionally on his part, as it was one of those mentoring moments where he just saw a chance to pour something into me. But he said, you know, whenever anyone would become a little cantankerous or get their nose bent out of joint, and they would be contesting either me or my leadership or some direction that the church was taking, or maybe not that at all. Maybe it was just something that I knew in my heart. They want to do this. They want to ask my opinion and my blessing. And I just know it's not a good idea for whatever reason. So he said, a lot more would be communicated by my response and my facial expressions than would be communicated with my words. And sometimes I'm guilty of having a face that has a mind of its own. Stephanie says, you're angry. I can see it on your face. I'm not trying to be. My face just, it does things. But here's exactly what he did. I'll never forget this. He said, so they'll come up and they'll say something. I'll look intently. I'll hear them and listen to them. And then I'll just sort of go, I don't know. I just don't know. And that right there just communicated so much, you know, or sometimes he might say, oh boy, that's a tough one. And not really. And now he did say this too, and this is so true. We know it's true. Some people are not perceptive. They do not notice gestures. They don't notice facial expressions. Some people they've also got this other thing that there's this filter where most of us have a filter that says, I shouldn't say that, but some people don't have that filter. Stuff comes out and they don't notice other things around them. And so of course, there's times where you have to be so direct, but if we can always keep in mind that we're setting the temperature around us, man, that's powerful. I loved that about this chapter, that it says, how is it worded where it says stay cool?
Stay calm.
Stay calm, that's it.
On 145. This whole chapter, this is like what I picked up on it, And I was thinking about you too. For most of the time, I can never, we've had a lot of meetings over the years,
Yeah.
and stuff. And I can, that's one thing I admire about you. Is now, of course, Mo has probably got a different perspective because he's your brother, but the calmness, you know what I mean?
Well, thank you for that,
Yeah,
Gordy. And I see that same thing about you. I see it about all of you.
Yeah.
Each one of you has something that I've thought to myself, man, that's something I need to work on and put into my playbook. That's, really, really good. But it's true. And I think right now, especially as we're negotiating changing times, let's be thermostats in our environment. Just that we stay calm, we lead by conviction, and that we listen to people. Sometimes people just need to be heard. That's all. Is I hear what you're saying. I value you. I have a different opinion, but it doesn't change one thing about how important you are to me, and that sort of thing.
Right.
So anyway, really, really great chapter. What else? Anything before we transition, you guys?
No, that was a good word, what you just said, though. That's so true. They got to know that they're heard, and sometimes just say, hey, we hear you. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah. And I can't even remember where I picked this up. I want to say it was at a Gary Smalley married couples weekend.
Mhm.
Stephanie and I did one time, and he talked about how important it is to use the skill of active listening. He said, most of us are not really active listeners. We're always engaged with what we're about to say. But if we could really actively listen, he said, the only way for your spouse to know that you're listening is for you to repeat back to her what she just said. And he said, they do it at McDonald's all the time. McDonald's, you go through and you say, I'll have a Big Mac and a large order of fries and a Diet Coke. And then they say, I have a Big Mac and a large Coke. Is that correct? No, I wanted a Diet Coke. And don't forget the fries. Oh, okay. So they're using active listening, and we need to use it all the time too. Oliver, I think I cut you off. Were you about to say something?
No.
Just don't say it sarcastically,
Oh, okay.
No, don't repeat it that way. I'm listening.
Oh, we could really get in trouble that way. Okay. All right. So why don't we transition to this next part of the meeting? And I think we've got about 15 minutes left. That ought to be good to talk for a while. There's a couple of things I want to accomplish with this time. One, I really hope we have time to go over a resource that I got from Peter Chapman that is excellent. And I did post it on our website under the Core of Discovery. But I'm going to pull it up for us here in a few minutes and we'll look at it together. Very timely and really, really wonderful material. But last week I prepped you guys by saying that if possible, I really wanted to talk about the role of the teaching pastors in the two congregations.
Right.
And I think one of the most important things to help with continuity with us as a church family is to see faces we're familiar with and to keep those connections going. In other words, I think that probably as Verado Campus establishes and begins to get some inertia and growing, that naturally relationships are going to form in that campus. I would imagine one of the big fears of BFA is people are going to go away from us to go do ministry. It's not going to be the same. We treasure these relationships. But if we've got a circle of teaching pastors that are familiar people, I think that helps a lot. Now, everybody can't preach every Sunday. There's only so many Sundays on the calendar. And And I still have not, even with all of these weeks, I've been praying and thinking on it, and I need to do some more about determining the matrix for what decides who gets to preach how often. And I know that our people need a chance to preach and to develop as many times as possible. That's how we get better at it. But one of the things, Oliver, here in just a moment, maybe share a dream that you have about possibly using people from ASOM. And we haven't even asked yet, but I thought, man, that's a great idea. And we are going to ask and see about preachers and worship leaders and things like that, just for developing skills and recruiting people. But for me, my personal goal is that I would like to preach, and I'm looking long-term. I'm believing God to do the miracles we ask for. And I'm praying for the day when we have launched 5 sites, which would give us 6 in all. A regular rotation. I want to be at each site once every 9 weeks. And just to be a familiar face popping in on a Sunday morning. I think it's easy to pull that off for me now if it's one site. But man, that would become challenging if the Lord does bless it. I kind of think, though, that if we get to that point, it will get a life of its own. I think it'll take care of itself. I really believe that. I would like for the people at BFA to see you, Oliver, once a quarter, like once every 13 weeks, to be back there just to preach. And I'm trying to think of ways to accomplish that the best way. I mean, I guess the main thing is it's going to have to take some tricky maneuvering on the calendar and planning out. I haven't forgotten that last week, Oliver, I told you that I would give you for October 30th, November 20th, December 18th, what I'm planning to preach on. And then in addition to that, that you and I, and we haven't even talked with you, Pastor Mo, would like to coordinate this coming year with worship team for what we're planning to preach in a general way, so that we can kind of have a theme and know where the altar calls are going and things like that. So Oliver, lest I forget, let me just tell you right now, on October 30th, that Saturday night, the next Sunday morning is October 31st. I'm doing a 3-Sunday series that's leading up to Reformation Sunday. October 31st was the day that Martin Luther tacked the 95 Theses to the Wittenberg door and triggered the reforming of the church out of Catholicism into Protestantism. So I'm celebrating that. And that's kind of what, like, as an overall theme. So maybe that is a direction that you could be going, and I don't know what even that looks like, but that's what I'm doing on the 30th. And then on November 20th, the very next day, on November 21st, that's going into Thanksgiving Thursday. So on that Sunday, the theme is Thanksgiving. And I was just thinking you would do the same thing on the 20th, leading into Thanksgiving. Same thing for Christmas in December 18th. So on the 19th, we're planning to have the kids' annual Christmas party. But on December 24th, which this year I believe is a Friday evening, that's going to be my Christmas message. I might do others with it to combine with it, but that's going to be a Christmas message for Christmas Eve. So I was thinking maybe your big Christmas, the heart of Christmas, whatever you feel, could happen on December 18th. So that's, at least you kind of know what I'm thinking over the coming weeks. And then we will need to get together and schedule.
Definitely.
So tell me, Gordy, you're an example. You're an ordained minister. We're blessed to have you at the church. I'm feeling like I want to factor into a matrix. What level of credentials does a person have? Are they certified? Are they licensed? Are they ordained? How many years experience do they have? Have they preached a lot, or is it a pretty rare thing? We've got right now 10 different individuals. I believe 9 AG credentialed ministers of some type. Either they are or they're pursuing it. And then one, at least one that I'm aware of that carries credentials with another organization, but is a wonderful minister. So I want to use those people, but I guess what I'm leading up to, just, I don't know how often, but are you game to speak at other places? And I think I know the answer to that, Gordy.
For me?
Yes.
You're asking me? Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Anytime, any place, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, do you guys
in season and out of season?
Right, right. For Pastor Mo, I've probably, for him, I have relied on him in a way that I don't even know how to describe it. There's a comfort level for me, and there is with all of you guys. And with, I have to be careful how I say this. Sometimes when people preach, you kind of come back and have to do a little bit of quality control. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't mean it in a bad way, but just, we're all developing and we say things. And so I often will use Mo if I'm not there. I've used Oliver the same way when I wasn't there. And in fact, Gordy, you have preached when I wasn't there. That is true. So all of you guys, there's a real comfort level that way. But I'm wanting to get the team together and decide who preaches how often, and I just haven't done it yet. But I think I hear you, Gordy, as one representative saying, yeah, count me in. I'll preach any chance I get.
Amen.
Oliver, just from your perspective as the new campus pastor, I know that when you're staring into the same eyeball Sunday after Sunday, you need the pulpit next Sunday and next Sunday. You need to build relationship. Can you at all speak at this point about your comfort level of having others come in? Like if I'm coming once every 9 weeks, that's already, that's 1 out of 9 weeks. So, what if, let's say, here's one thing I thought of. What if there were one other person who were preaching during that 9 weeks? Is that too much? Should it be one additional person every 18 weeks? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Very great question. I remember when we started the Canoeing Through the Mountains, one of the first chapters we talked about was that camaraderie of sitting around the fire, getting to know one another.
Yeah.
I know you guys. I know I have no problems with anybody, that you pick, these guys, whoever, coming to the church. That's great. It really is great to do that. I would love any time for these guys to come.
And I'm sure as with anything, we'll learn some things as we go, and we might just find that, man, certain people just really seem to connect and they know it. And then others, it doesn't seem like a fit and they know it. I would imagine that's, I don't know, sort of the case. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, now we had talked earlier and I came on board a few weeks after you started because of other issues and stuff. So you might have already discussed this. So now, as far as being a satellite campus, now is it going to be live? Are you going to be live streamed a couple weeks out of the month, or how's that going to work?
No, that's a great question. And by the way, there's no wrong questions. That's a good one. No, we're committed to having a simultaneous live service with live worship and live preaching. Now, it may not be full throttle, full band and all of that. Or it may be. We'll be developing as we go. Pastor Mo will have the oversight of the music at both locations.
Right.
And so I've been super proud of you, Mo, because I see you stretching and using people and developing people. And I know it's, in some sense, it has to be like, man, how are we going to pull this off and just what's going to happen? But I've been so proud of you guys. But does that answer your question?
So you're not, okay, I know we had talked about that before. Okay, a long time ago. And you had mentioned something about a screen in the church and you'll be preaching a simulcast, but
there are so many different models. And one of the things I said even early on in this process was that my goal would be, if we do get to multiple campuses, like 6 of them, I would like and maybe this is the solution that I was trying to find earlier. I'd love to be able to speak to the whole campus, all the campuses, and that might be once a quarter or something.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't think it would be the whole sermon. I think it would be like a greeting, and we love you, and we're in this thing together, sort of a thing.
Okay.
And man, do I love your pastor. He's an awesome guy, and all of that sort of stuff. So, but we want live worship and live preaching at each site.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
let's take, we've got 6 minutes left. Last week, Peter Chapman went to a conference. It was the Gateway Church in Dallas, Fort Worth, Robert Morris, their conference, and he just happened to attend a session about multi-sites and multiple campuses. And so I thought, man, I want you guys to look at this on your own time. Let's just hit some of the highlights, but it's 24 pages long, and it's really, really good. Where you will find it is if you go on bfachurch.org and go over where under resources and expansion, vision for expansion, and then when you finally get to core of discovery, and you guys know this, all of the sessions are on there. All of these Zoom sessions are on that page, and you just drop down under number 10, it's right there. By the way, as you're going through that page, anything that's has the red bar or the red background behind it, those are just resources, just like this one. But I thought it was really good. A couple of observations. He says it this way: Gateway Central and campus working relationship is not a problem to solve, but a tension to manage. Peter said they really emphasized this, that no matter how they've tried to work around it, there is always an existing tension between the sending site and the campus site. And when I hear that word, I'm used to using the word tension as a negative word, and maybe it is, but I don't think that's what they're describing at all. I think they're saying that this tension, it's about the management more so than the existing tension. In other words, I'm picturing like a bow on a string, the string on a bow. How taut is it? That you have to manage it for effectiveness and to always be aware that the tension exists. I would be interested to know more about that, but they go through the fact that leadership is the key. I want you to look at these. Man, I was so thrilled that we had chosen you, Oliver. When I read this, I thought that's exactly Oliver. Gateway functions with the conviction that we must have the right leadership at each campus and in important central areas. 3 important qualities are character, commitment, and ministry calling. Number 3, committed to developing leaders where they are and hiring those who want to be developed. But look at number 4, this is critical. Key indicators of bad leadership fit would be lack of humility, lack of teachability, and low ability to work as a team with a team. That's incredibly important. And I've said all along on this that we have to have the kind of people who, it doesn't matter who gets the credit. We're just kingdom people. We just want God's church to grow. We want the work to be strong. But that was a really neat confirmation to me. Now, here's the campus structure, how they are set up, sort of their flow chart. It's interesting, and you can read through all of that on your own. I do notice, though, that look at that, worship pastor is one category, sort of the same way we set that up. They recognize something. There are campus pastors and associate campus pastors, but they have worship as one category there. Again, read all of this on your own. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out. This is their ministry menu. And if you were to go through there, you would see some of the same kinds of ideas like what we've talked about in previous sessions, not really super spiritual things, but just ways of connecting with people, creative songwriting, father-daughter dance. I'm not a dancer, but I just see what they're attempting to do there, the connection of family, topical classes, next steps classes, all kinds of groups are listed on here. There's many different things. And then these are menu add-ons. These are like additional things. And so it talks on here about how they would introduce a new ministry item. And they have a process that you can read about it, but in order for it to fit their criteria, they screen it by the church vision, and then it becomes an add-on at one site, sort of a word for testing. And then if that goes well, then it gets rolled out to all of the campuses. They live with the consistency or the conviction that the central campus or the central hub, that everything must flow out of that. And they really drive that home, that people have to be committed to the church, to the vision. And they do I was glad to hear this, they do the same structure of what we've described. And that is that there's one board that oversees the ministry, and that all of the pastors are answerable to the central hub. I would like to see them do a little better at developing the peripherals and becoming sort of that evolving hub where there's shared responsibility. We're under a minute. Budget standardization, you guys should look at all of this. They have a ratio, and that is for every campus, one pastor and one pastor at the central church. That's how they do it. And they have, according to the attendance, if you've got 100 people, one is at the campus and one is at the church. No, that's not right. They need 4. So 2 at the campus and 2 at the main hub. We're running out of time. I'm hurrying. Read this though, look at it. And I think